January 6th was a devastating day. If you guys weren't there, some of your colleagues were on Capitol Hill. So let me say you've paid a lot of attention to that particular. I actually did not see that. I was with him in Hiroshima, so this is something that I was not aware of, so I can't speak to that. I just don't have anything to share outside of what my colleagues have shared, and so I would refer you to him and the DOJ. Just not going to comment from here. I am a Black woman who is queer, who's an immigrant, and I am the spokesperson, the White House press secretary for the President of the United States. Like that is the simplest way to put it, and the most powerful way to put it. And I say that because there's so much weight on that, on saying those words, on actually saying it and visualizing and realizing the moment and what this means. And yes, so I speak for him, and and it's not just to the American people, it's to the world.
Right.
It is globally. There are heads of states who listen in on the press briefing to hear what we're saying, just to get a sense of where America is, just to get a sense of where the President of the United States is. And so that is the gravity of the role. That is the gravity of having that voice for the president. I'm honored and privileged to have it. I'm honored at the fact that he asked me to do this.
Yeah.
And I'm always in awe of it.
Yeah, we're just coming out of Black History Month. Now we're in Women's History Month. You personify both. But what prepares you for this job? You mentioned the weight of the world. Black women generally carry the weight of the world. What prepared you for this?
Yeah, it's definitely the definition of Black women, and what we have to do, and throughout, not just throughout throughout decades and decades, in either leading movements or being part of a movement. And so that's certainly true. Look, this all means so much, I think, to me and to so many people. Like you said, Black History Month just ended. The president had a reception for 500 people in the community. They were just there just a couple of days ago, and you got to see folks from all industries, from all sectors, coming together to talk about what this moment is, where we are as a country. And I think it's so important to do that. And one of the things that he said that I think is so important as well to say, and which is, Black History Month Black history is so important. It's American history. It's something that we need to understand and educate, not just ourselves, but folks outside of the community, on how important the roles, like we talk about women, how important the roles of Black folks have been, since almost the beginning of the creation of what this America is supposed to be, or what is envisioned to be.
But at the same time too, not but Black women, I said it again, but Black women are also tested a lot, right? You walk in that briefing room and you know that there is at least one, probably more, journalists in there that really wants you to mess up. They want you to misstate something. They want you to say something that perhaps you wouldn't ordinarily say. What is that like each day to stand before these journalists, many in this climate? Because we have a totally different climate than, say, the press secretary for Obama and Bush had and Clinton had. It's a different climate. So what is it like?
It's definitely a different political climate, right? Which is one of the reasons why this president ran for office, right? Because there was a division there. We were in a place in this country, and I don't want to say that we've never seen before, but we were divided in a way we hadn't seen in a long time. And he talked about the soul of the nation, the soul of America, wanting to save that, wanting to address issues like racial inequality, right? Issues that are so important to the fabric of what this country is. And so you saw this president really try to deal with that, and is dealing with that in the last 2 years. But, it is a different environment. It is, and it's hard to break through. But what we are committed to, myself, my team, and also others in the White House and the president, is to make sure that we stay focused. We stay laser focused on the job at hand.
Yeah.
We stay laser focused on why we're here in the first place.
Yeah.
We stay laser focused on we are here to deliver for the American people. And you've seen that. You've seen that in the last 2 years. I mean, to answer your question, it's like we just kind of keep doing the work, and that's what is going to be the reward.
Well, there's this great script, not script, but a clip Richard Pryor. He
Mm.
played a black president. And he was at the podium in the briefing room, and someone talked about his mama. And I think about you in that sense, only because they're gonna try you, right? And I know you felt like you've been tried. I can't put words in your mouth, don't want to, but I know they've tried you. What keeps you from saying, that son of a, from such news? What?
My mom is watching, so I always
Okay.
have to be very careful. No, because look, the president and Dr. Biden, they decided to put me in this position. They decided that they wanted Karine Jean-Pierre, with all of the things, all the communities that I represent, clearly being a Black person, right? Being a Black woman, they said, we want you to represent us.
Right.
We want you to represent the White House. We want to meet this moment that we're in. And we know that you are beyond capable of doing that, right? You are experienced, and you are the voice that we want to have. So knowing that, Stacy, knowing that I am representing the voice of the president, then I have to do that, right? I mean, that's the job. The job in this particular job, in many jobs in the White House, if you're a political appointee, you are representing the administration,
Right.
the Biden-Harris administration, full stop. But in this job, because I speak for him all the time, I have to think about, okay, what is it that the president would say here? How would he want me to react to this question?
Yeah.
Because I am speaking for him on for the American people, but for him, and trying to connect our message and really speak to, look, the things, the historic pieces of legislation that we've got through, bipartisan infrastructure legislation, American Rescue Plan, which would cut poverty for Black community, Black children by almost 50%, right? We're talking about, that's the credit, the child tax credit, right?
Yep.
Which is so incredibly important. You think about unemployment rate that has gone down at historic lows for the Black community at 5.4%. All of those things, you think about the HBCU, almost $6 billion, right, that we were able to do, that the president, historic funding that has gone to the HBCU. Those are the things that he wants me to talk about.
Well,
those are the things that he wants me to focus on.
Yeah. Well, we had Congressman Benny Thompson on our program last week, and he emphatically said that President Biden has done more for the Black community than any president in history.
I agree. I mean, so if you look at I just talked about the historic pieces of legislation, bipartisan infrastructure legislation, CHIPS and Science Act, Inflation Reduction Act, and that's just a few, American Rescue Plan. You look at those pieces of legislation, it speaks to the president's economic policy. He has said from day one, when he walked into this administration, he wants an economic policy that works for everyone. There's been so many communities over the years that have been left behind, our community. And he has made it very clear that is not going to happen under his watch.
Right.
He wants communities that have felt like they have left behind to not feel left behind, to be actually lifted up and be part of this economic growth. You think about the student loan relief,
Right.
that Supreme Court
is
just
threatening to-
heard. They just heard the argument, right? We just had our Solicitor General make a strong case for why the president's plan to really give relief to Americans who are being crushed by student loan debt, and fighting for that. I mean, that is something that he put forward, and now we're fighting for it in front of the Supreme Court justice, because it's going to help our community.
Right.
And you think about what Eli Lilly did today. They made an announcement that they are going to now cap insulin at $35 for the patients, right? Patients who have to pay to the drug makers. That's amazing.
Yeah, that's huge.
Why did that happen? You had the president of the United States standing in front of Congress at the State of the Union saying, pharma drug company need to start really making sure that we're lowering costs for American families. That affects Black people.
Yeah.
You think about your grandmother, you think about your grandfather, you think about seniors, or your kids who have to be on insulin. That is going to give tremendous relief, and that is because of this president's.
Well, it gives me hope because I, not that I ever say anything personal, but I take Humira, the shot. And so a Humira pen is $3,500 a shot. I take it once a week. So, Greer's not paying me that much at all to be able to afford something like that. You have to talk to her
I'm
about
about to
that.
say, I'll talk to Greer. I don't know if I have any pull.
But but now that let's go back to the briefing room, because now that we've established that there will be no Will Smith moment from you going down there and slapping somebody, slapping the taste out of them.
We do not condone violence
We
here.
don't
We condemn violence. That is not something that it lives under this administration.
So Jesus, fantastic. So now you made and we took notice of your post on Instagram about the first Black reporter in the briefing room.
Yeah.
How important is it that Black voices are heard in that briefing room? I know April is there a lot, but outside of April, it's kind of hard to get representation.
Yeah. And that's first of all, that story is a tremendous, important story that needed to be told. And I was happy that I was included in that story. Ibram, who did anti-racist, how to be an
Yes.
anti-racist, he actually posted that and told this beautiful story about the first Black reporter and what he had to go through, and just to walk into the briefing room and ask a question. And if folks have not read that story, you should. I think there are Black superheroes, if you will, who have been forgotten in history. And I think it goes back to where I am today in this position. I am standing on the shoulders of so many people who have come before me, whether they were the first Black reporter that was allowed to go into the briefing room and ask a question, or Judy Smith, who was the last Black woman to give a briefing in the briefing room about almost 30 years from the day that I did it as a deputy principal press secretary back in May of 2021. I am not here on my own.
Right.
I did not do this by myself. I did this because so many people came before me. And I think that's what's so amazing about Black History Month, right? That's what's so amazing about Women's History Month, is that you get to remember and reflect on the people who came before you and open the doors and laid that path
Right.
for you. So that story is so critical, is so important. And there's clearly a connection to me. But look, we have April Ryan, who's an icon in that world. She's been, I never want to say how long she's been doing it, because I always say it wrong, and then she corrects me because she says it's longer. But it's been more than 25 years that she has been a White House correspondent, has been reporting on the White House, and that's tremendous. And it's amazing to have her voice. She's now with the Griot, and I think she has a Gavin, who's when she's not in the seat, and it's the day of the Griot, he's there, and it's great to have their voice. Now, do we need more voices of color, Black reporters in the room? Absolutely. And that's something I know the White House Correspondents Association is trying to work through and figure that out. But it is important. It is important to have diverse voices in the room. It is important to make sure communities feel like there's someone in the room that looks like them, that's asking the question of me. And of course, this is a White House. This is the Harris White House, is the most diverse
Oh yeah.
White House
Yeah. Proof is in the pudding.
ever.
That's just not rhetoric.
Ever, right? It's proof, as you said, Stacy, proof is in the pudding. It's not just rhetoric, because we have delivered over and over and over again. I am one example, one of many examples.
Right.
One of my favorite other examples, Kataji Brown Jackson, which, driving here, I saw a mural of her on one of the buildings, which is incredibly beautiful in DC. And you think about how she has become an icon because because of who she is and how brilliant she is, and what she represents to so many people across the country, and I would probably argue across the globe. And I mean, it goes on and on and on, and what we've been able to do. Most Black women appointed to federal judgeship. I mean, this is promises that have been made and kept by President Biden.
Now, I won't say who the journalist's name is, but someone said she never calls on me.
Oh,
But what's the protocol? I mean,
okay.
you do look around, right?
I do look around, and here's the thing: I tell people, "Come see me."
Right.
Come see me.
Right.
come make it a
Well,
come
and
to
isn't
my
that one of
office
those things?
and get to know me, because what tends to happen, I call on people that I don't know, but it's always your brain,
Yeah,
right? Just automatically, there are 50 plus
yeah,
people in the
it's
room.
full.
You're going to be like, okay, I know you. Go ahead, ask your question. Or
But
you
isn't
want to
that
have a person, you also want to know the person that you're calling,
yeah?
because you also want to give people like, oh, this is so and so, I'm
Mhm.
calling on them now. I always tell people, we tell them all the time, if you feel that you're not being called on, it probably because I don't know
Don't know
you.
you. Yeah. Well, and I was going to say too. I know President Obama had to make it clear. Look, I'm not the president of Black America. I'm the president of all of America. And it's the same case with you,
Yeah,
right? You're a Black woman,
yeah.
um, who is the you're a Black press secretary,
Mhm.
but you're
I'm the
not
White House
just
press
the
secretary
White House press
who
secretary
happens to be
who happens to be
Black.
Black.
Yeah.
And so you're not there just to call on Black people.
No, that's right. I have to call on as many people in the room as I can.
Right.
And that's true. It is indeed true. I am representing the President of the United States, and I also, in many ways, are representing through him the American population. Right? It
Right.
doesn't matter if you're in a red state, blue state, rural, urban, suburban, wherever you are. We are speaking to you directly about the issues that we are working on, because the president says himself he's a president for everyone.
Everyone.
That is what he believes his job is.
Yeah. Talk about this, if you will. That you mentioned about doors opening, and obviously you have now opened doors for many. How important is that for you to make sure that those doors are wide open after you leave, whatever that
Incredibly,
might be?
incredibly important to me. Incredibly important. And it is one of the things that, we were just talking about my job and my hours. I do wish that I had more time to be a mentor to people, especially young women of color. Erica is in the room here, who is amazing.
Fabulous.
She's fabulous. She works in the comms team, and she is, she is the person that works with all of you, right?
Yep.
She represents, or not represents, but does our African American outreach with press. And I hope that she feels that I'm a mentor to her, and that I'm around as much as I can be in this role. And, I'm just going to repeat what the vice president says all the time, even in her historic position as the first Black woman, as the first AAPI woman in that role, the first woman in the role. I mean, she checks so many boxes herself. And she says, and I have to paraphrase it because I never quote it right, but you'll get what I'm trying to say. She says that her mom used to tell her that, you should be the first, but not the last.
Right.
And that is opening up the door. You should make sure that other people are coming behind you, and that, that you're not the last person that they see that looks like me, and then it takes 30 years later. It shouldn't be that.
Yeah. And you mentioned earlier 15-hour days, 16-hour days doesn't give you much time to try and, like you said, mentor.
Yeah.
So what can you do to ensure, what do you feel you can do to ensure that that door is open?
I think that I have to keep doing a good job, right? I have to prove that we belong, and it, I'll say this, Stacy. So we live in this bubble, the DMV bubble, and you get caught up in the stuff that you hear over and over
Yeah.
again all the time. And one of the things that I always love to do is leave the bubble.
Right.
And when I meet people outside of this world, and they come up to me, some are emotional, some are like giddy and proud. And it always shocks me, because I live in a bubble. And sometimes the reality of me, this Black woman standing at the podium, doesn't quite really hit me,
Yeah.
but it hits other people.
Yeah.
And they say to me all the time, you do not know what it means to me, to my daughter, to my son, or to whoever in my family, to my grandmother even,
To Austin Cooper.
to Austin Cooper, who's in the room as well. Hello, Austin. Seeing me at the podium. And for them, it doesn't matter what I say. It's like seeing that visual of me standing at the podium speaking on behalf, as I started, I speak for the president of the United
Right.
States. It moves them. It moves them. It's emotional for them. Some of them tell me it gives them hope.
Yeah.
It fulfills them. And it always blows my mind. It blows my mind that it has such a deep meaning for folks. I'm number 35
Mm-hmm.
as White House press secretary. There were 34 more. None of them look like me,
None of them.
right? There were 34 before me. None of them look like me. So,
And none of them could be as beautiful.
oh
We
my
talk
God.
about this all the time. That Erica and all of that staff over there, you guys are the most beautiful.
Well,
It's like going into that White House is like going into like Ebony magazine.
this conversation is taking a whole
It's
different
taking a total turn.
turn. No, but I appreciate that. Thank you so much, Stacy. And Erica thanks you too. And so does the whole entire comms and press staff. Erica's giving me a look. Okay,
I'm waiting for Erica to say wrap it up.
we're moving, but just to end what you were asking me, how do we keep that door open? I think it's just continuing to do the work. I think it's continue to make sure that we put people in office that is going to make sure that we feel that we are represented. And be very deliberate about it. Be very deliberate about who you support. Be very deliberate about being involved. Be very, very deliberate about speaking up on the achievements of this administration, because that's it. Again, I am here, and all of the successes that you see for this community, for our community, the Black community, is because of the president, the person who's sitting in the Oval Office behind the Resolute desk, and who has been incredibly methodical and purposeful about how we move forward as administration.
Do you ever get a moment where you yourself have taken it in and say, wow, I'm really the White House press secretary?
Yeah, I mean, look, when I see people, like I just told that story about seeing people outside of the bubble, people in our community who have been incredibly affected by what we have done as an administration, but by seeing me at the podium. And I have to tell you, and one of the things that I try not to lose is every time I step on the White House campus, or I go into the West Wing, or I go into the Oval Office, I go into my office, which is really a stone throw away from the Oval, or I make that walk from my office to the briefing room to give my briefing every day. It's not lost on me. It is not lost on me on how an amazing experience, and I sometimes have to pinch myself and be like, how did I end up here? This is amazing. And say, I am the White House press secretary, and I have to say, I am the White House press secretary. I'm about to go to the podium, or I'm about to go into the Oval Office, or travel with the president, or Marine One, or Air Force One, or to Poland, where we were just last week. And it is sometimes it does catch me a little bit. And I hope that I never lose that feeling. I hope that I never lose that feeling of how amazing this moment is, how historic this moment is, and how important it is.
You did an interview. Okay, last question. You did an interview about your parents. You mentioned them still living paycheck to paycheck, but to you, what your accomplishments, to them, they feel like that's they accomplished the American dream through you. Talk about that to wrap us up.
So, and I want to be very careful when we talk about the American dream. It's incredibly complicated.
Oh, I agree.
It is incredibly, I don't want to be Pollyannish about it. It is incredibly complicated. Many people do not reach the American dream. Many people are still very much struggling and trying to figure out just how to live and how to just survive. And so I try to be a little bit more careful about that. But to your point, my parents are Haitian. They grew up in Haiti, which is the first Black republic and has an amazing, rich history for our community. That is our history as well, right? When you look at the Haiti and its history. And they came here because they wanted something better for themselves and their kids. And they worked very, very hard to do just that. I would argue that they have not achieved the American dream, and there's many reasons why. And it's many reasons why. I'm certainly not going to go into that. And you mentioned they still live check to check. It is very hard for them. But seeing me, I spoke to my mom this morning. I speak to her as often as I can, try to speak to her every day. And the first thing she asked me was, what time are you going to be at the podium? I'm going to watch, because she watches me every day.
Wow.
And she watches with pride.
Yeah.
She brags to her friends, and she feels like she's a star because I'm at the podium. And she could have never it's like her wildest dream.
Yeah.
She comes from very difficult upbringing. She's orphaned. She didn't know her parents, and she grew up poor. And the fact that she gets to watch me at the podium every day, in that sense of thinking, it is part of that American dream.
Right.
And I'm just very lucky to have had her in my life, and to give me that stability and that sense of self, to help me be able to be where I am today. And I do this all for her and my dad, and my family, and I do this for the future, which is my daughter.
Yeah. Well, White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre, we so appreciate
Thank you,
guys.
Stacy. I appreciate it. It's good to see you.
Great to see you.
All right.
And it's great to see Erica as always. Thanks a lot.